Samantha Tank from the Great Lakes Commission. Sam is a project manager for the Great Lakes Commission Aquatic Invasive Species Program. In this role, she coordinates 3 invasive species collaboratives, including the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative and the Phragmites Adaptive Management Framework, the Invasive Mussel Collaborative, and the European Frogbit Collaborative. In this presentation, we'll learn more about the European Frogbit Collaborative and their important work in controlling European frogbit in the Great Lakes. And with that, I will hand things over to you, Samantha.
Great, thanks so much. Okay, hopefully that is sharing appropriately. I am really glad to be here today. I've been attending this conference for quite a few years now. I was just talking with John and saying that I do miss when it used to be in person. I think the last time I attended 2 years in person, and I've mostly spoken about the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative, or PAMF. But if you want to hear about that, you'll have to attend the meeting next week. So today I'm here to talk about the European Frogbit Collaborative and its recent expansion beyond Michigan to support work going on throughout the Great Lakes. So I'm guessing a lot of people here know quite a bit more about European frogbit than I do. It is native to Europe, Asia, and Africa, and it's been here for quite some time. First reports are from the 1930s. It started off establishing the eastern part of the Great Lakes Basin and spreading west since. The biology of the plant really allows it to spread in a variety of different ways. So it can drift and spread that way through moving water. Wildlife are a potential vector. And as we know, for many aquatic invasive plants, human activities such as boating or hunting are also going to be potential vectors of spread. So this is what the plant looks like. It is quite small. So the leaves are about 1 to 5 or 6 centimeters across. You'll see in some of my future pictures, some of the dense mats that it can form. It can look like a pond lily, especially, when they're first emerging their leaves and they're quite small. But the key distinguishing feature is going to be at the top of the leaves. They're rounded and form this heart-shaped leaf. There's not points like you would see on pond lilies. And another distinguishing feature is going to be this white flower that has 3 petals on it. It can reproduce both sexually and asexually. This turion feature, that it drops turions, which allows it to form new plants later in the growing season, and it can spread quickly that way. So I just want to now go into a little bit of history on the European Frogbit Collaborative. It's been around since 2018, but if you're thinking to yourself, why haven't I heard about it? That's because it started off as a Michigan specific collaborative. So back in 2018, the state of Michigan initiated the formation of the Frogbit Collaborative after it was identified as a species of concern by land managers and state agencies. So the group got together and they were looking for a way to better understand European frogbit. There wasn't a lot known about its control, and it was new to the area, at least in Michigan, and it was slower to, and they wanted a way to slow the spread of this invasive species. So the collaborative they implemented or developed, I suppose, an adaptive management framework, which I'll talk about a little bit later on, and 5 strategies. And this was intended as a coordinated approach to management and outreach within the state, and helped focus research to improve the understanding of just basic biology of the plant, impacts to native communities, water quality, invasion risk, et cetera, et cetera. So Great Lakes Restoration Initiative funding was made available through Fish and Wildlife Service to fund this project. And actually that's still what we're working on today. If you're not familiar with that, that's federal funding through the EPA that is generally distributed to federal agencies and states within the US and is dedicated to projects that are working on protecting and restoring Great Lakes resources. So the initial kind of idea champions were the state of Michigan and Central Michigan University, which is a local university within the state. And they formed a technical advisory group. They engaged partners. You can see some of the logos throughout the state. And they really did a lot in a pretty short period of time. So between 2018 and 2020, the collaborative had annual meetings. And like I said, they developed the adaptive management framework and then released that in 2021. And they were kind of, I guess I'll say, outgrowing their britches at that point. And froglet had been identified in other states. So Wisconsin was starting to see some. We had, reports in Pennsylvania. We had reports, obviously, in Ontario. It's been here for some time. And the Great Lakes Commission, where I'm from, was identified as a potential organizing neutral backbone organization in late 2021. And it was kind of requested that we start pursuing funding to support and expand the collaborative to make it not just Michigan focused, but provide this resource and continue expanding on this resource so that it's available to all of the Great Lakes Basin. So we've since established a collaborative governance structure. This looks really similar to the other collaboratives that Vicki had mentioned during my introduction. And so this includes, or Emily, I'm sorry. And so this includes a steering committee that provides us with our kind of guidance overall, guides the direction of the collaborative. We have work groups. Currently, we have 3 work groups, and that is chaired by, each of those are chaired by a member of the collaborative, and they are working towards specific goals. And they can either be standing work groups or they can be kind of, they complete whatever tasks they have outlined in their charge, and then they dissolve. And then we have our membership, which is meant to be representative of both US and Canadian federal agencies, tribes, states, provinces, local agencies, all the way down to, individuals, grassroots groups, anyone who is interested in collaborating and working together to advance collaborative goals. And so I'll just throw in a pitch now. I'll say it again later, but I invite all of you to participate and engage with the collaborative. You can help us in all sorts of ways, identifying different needs in Ontario and throughout the basin. And we're doing this effort to protect the Great Lakes, and it works best when we have complete representation of all of the jurisdictions. And then there's the Great Lakes Commission, which stepped in as the kind of administrative body, providing neutral backbone support to the collaborative. I had mentioned previously the adaptive management framework. So we at the Commission had the benefit of not starting from scratch with this collaborative. As I mentioned, a lot of work had gone into planning it and establishing things such as the adaptive management framework, which was developed through an initiative led by collaborative members. So I want to walk through the 5 strategies that are outlined in the adaptive management framework. To date, each strategy has had some level of work done, and several strategies have work groups that are focused specifically on advancing the goals that are associated with them. And I'm going to talk about each of them, but I'll start off with the first strategy. And that one is delimiting high-risk European frogbit infestations, or documenting where those infestations are occurring throughout the Great Lakes. So prior to 2018, and really it was in 2019 when the work group formed, everyone was out there using different surveillance techniques and protocols to document where frogbit had been establishing. And within Michigan, at least, the majority of confirmed frogbit locations of infestation were being reported through MISIN, or the Midwest Invasive Species Information Network. But there wasn't really a full and comprehensive surveillance effort. So the delimitation work group was formed within the collaborative, and their charge has designated that they're going to work towards developing and implementing some type of standard delimitation method that was going to be simple enough that didn't require extensive training to implement, and then provide information on where European frogbit, not only where it was, but where it was not detected as well. Because this piece of information was missing, but it's important in preventing duplication of efforts and more accurately tracking invasion history of the plant as well. So what the work group did is set forth to design this SOP, or standard operating procedure, and come up with a standard way for reporting this data as well. So they decided on a GIS-based data collection app to standardize delimitation surveys and overcome some of the other issues that I had mentioned, like documenting absence data. GIS-based apps provide, a solution to kind of all the issues at hand. However, they do have the main downside of access restrictions. So utilizing these apps requires an ESRI account, and there is a little bit of a learning curve to utilizing this technology. However, the cons, at least at present, they didn't really provide a significant enough barrier that outweighed all of the benefits of this platform. So in order to address the data needs, 2 apps were developed, and I'll just briefly describe both of them. Sorry, someone is blowing up my phone right now, and it is not, we're talking about frogbit. Okay, so for the delimitation app, we started off with an app called Quick Capture. This was a pretty simple app. It was just a 6-button, as you can see, platform that was really easy to use, but its data collection abilities were pretty limited. So the app moved over to Survey 123 platform, which had more options and the ability to link polygons, to add photos. It had even more options and was just as user-friendly. And since then, we finally settled on one final platform, which is the Field Maps platform. These are all ESRI products. So last year, the app was retooled a little bit based on some learning that had happened by utilizing Quick Capture and Survey 123. And the Field Maps version was released, which is even more comprehensive. The app has the benefit now of being able to be used online, but also offline, and then uploading data. So even if you don't have cell phone reception while using it, it can sync once you reconnect. And it can simultaneously collect both lines, points, and polygons, and also has the added bonus of adding features or files and attaching additional information. So I just want to really quickly go over some of the results from last year's survey efforts. So we had 54 members, which could either be an organization or an individual who has an ESRI account. And those are the folks who are currently enrolled in our specific ESRI group. And those members collected over 1,200 points within Michigan and Wisconsin. You can see just a tiny bit of Wisconsin that was represented in the Green Bay area. And this totaled over 814 miles or 1,300 kilometers that was surveyed. This just provides a kind of zoomed in view. You can see what the point data looks like. You can see a little bit of what the line or transect data looks like. And if we zoom in a little bit further, you can see these polygons that describe presence, absence, and even give an idea of relative density as well. So moving on to the second app that the delimitation work group developed, this is the prioritization tool, which provides a prediction of where European frogbit is most likely to establish. This app is currently based on expert knowledge and utilizes relevant ancillary data sets for site prioritization predictions and analysis. And some of these data sets include dams, boating access sites, where rec and game areas are, lakes, wetlands. It does show, as you can see, data from the delimitation app as well, and it uses the Great Lakes Relative Exposure Index. But if you look at it, you can see there's only a little bit of, I hid the slide that actually shows what it looks like when it overlays the prioritization. But right now we only have those layers in that data making predictions within Michigan. However, we are working right now to expand that over time to include the entire basin, so that anyone who's interested in using that to help them refine their monitoring plans is able to do so. So we have a lot of resources right now, but like I said previously, there is a little bit of a learning curve. So we're offering some both in-person and virtual trainings planned for probably between April and May, prior to when monitoring really starts for European frogbit. And I definitely encourage everyone to attend. We'll be making some announcements, and hopefully it circulates within your network as well. So now I'm going to move on to the second strategy, which is assessing ongoing European frogbit control efforts. So there's still a lot of progress that we need to make, and we know that we need to kind of fill in some gaps to identify effective control options for European frogbit. So this gap really sparked the formation of the management assessment work group, who worked with Central Michigan University to create the Standard Treatment Impact Monitoring Protocol, or what we lovingly call the STIMP. So the STIMP was established as a standard methodology for evaluating the impact of frogbit treatments. And it looks at before and after monitoring reports, and then compares what treatments were implemented. So just to give you kind of a better idea of what that looks like, the protocols include a detailed set of field sheets or data sheets for pre and post monitoring, as well as documenting what treatments were implemented in between. And this is another ESRI app that allows users to submit reports and contribute to this collective learning process. So all of the data that participants submit is then kind of put into this central database, but it can also be accessed by users as well. So for those of you who have heard some of my previous talks, or maybe those of you who heard it mentioned, I want to just give a shout out to Friends of Second March. You guys mentioned us, and I'm going to mention you. This might sound familiar to PAMF, which is our Phragmites Adaptive Management Framework, where we are looking at pre and post monitoring surrounding Phragmites control efforts and trying to learn which management actions are most effective and efficient. So PAMF is a little bit more of a formalized process and program, but that's kind of the general outline or direction that the STIMP is kind of lending itself to as well. With all efforts like this, there's a lot of data. And when we took over administering the collaborative earlier, well, I guess in October of last year, we were given the historical data set, and we need to start sifting through that data and making any necessary updates to the data collection protocols based on what we've learned so far. Our goal is to make the revised app available prior to the start of the field season and available also via the Field Maps platform for anyone who's planning to implement any sort of control for European frogbit this spring and summer. So one of the main goals of our enhanced and expanded collaborative is really to serve as an information hub on European frogbit biology, management, research, etc. And it's not really dissimilar to those of you who are familiar with the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative and the website that we host for that. So right now we're working on creating a website for the European Frogbit Collaborative. It's going to take a little bit to get our resources up there. We're also planning to host a listserv. We just did establish our email address. So if you want to reach out to us, it's efb@glc.org, which has kind of a easy to remember ring to it. This is going to be the location where we're hosting everything from fact sheets to access to all of the apps, reports of kind of lessons learned, data, things like that. Okay, now moving on to the fourth strategy. Another aspect of the strategy and the collaborative is identifying critical information needs relevant to European frogbit management. So here's a little screen grab from our adaptive management framework, and it's really just showing the plan for addressing this strategy. But really what it's simply saying is that we're working to identify current research and management needs and then fill those gaps by working collaboratively together. So now that we've established our new system of governance, we are going to potentially create a work group that's dedicated to advancing European frogbit research and management. So more to come soon on this, but this is something that we're dedicated to working on as well. And our final strategy is all about assessing protection or asset protection by containing existing European frogbit infestations within the basin and hopefully mitigating the impacts in order to protect uninvaded high-value habitats. So we're currently approaching this by increasing control and prevention efforts across the Great Lakes, as well as improving information sharing to ensure there's effective and efficient methods that are, available and being used for both. This strategy is really reliant on us making progress on the first four strategies that I covered, but it also is reliant on expanding participation of the collaborative to the entirety of the basin and beyond. And I do keep saying the basin, but I'd say we're more regional. So if you consider yourselves in the Great Lakes region, we're here for you. So I'll just end with a couple ways that you can get involved. You can email me at any time. Both the Frogbit and my personal email are up there right now. You can take advantage of the 3 available apps. They should all be ready to access by the end of April, and take advantage of the trainings too. So again, the delimitation app, that is available to collect and share monitoring data, and it includes the history of presence absence data, relative density. There's the prioritization app, which is a really great tool that can be utilized when starting to set monitoring plans for the next year. And then also the STIMP, which allows you to contribute to the collective learning effort surrounding European Frogbit management. And then the last thing you can do is join the collaborative. We are kind of in the process of trying to expand our membership, and we are lacking many members from Ontario. And so I really want to encourage those of you who are interested to reach out and see how you can get involved. And with that, hopefully we have a couple minutes for questions. Thanks so much.
Great. Thanks, Sam, for that really great presentation. It's really great to hear about this project and how it's going to help prevent the spread of this invasive plant. So we do have a couple questions in our Q&A for you. Anna Meng's asking, how applicable do you think these monitoring protocols are across other species?
Yeah, that is a great question. Some of them are going to be specific to Frogbit, just where it establishes, low flow areas, areas with, minimal kind of disturbance. But I'd say overall, the monitoring protocols are based on other aquatic plants, so should be fairly applicable or could be adapted with some smaller tweaks.
Perfect. John Foster's asking, how closely do you work with the International Joint Commission?
So the International Joint Commission it sits at a different level than the Great Lakes Commission. While they're a binational organization, or I'm sorry, they are a federal binational organization. We are at the level of the states and provinces. So we have kind of granted authority to represent the interests of Great Lakes states and provinces. So we do work closely with them on a number of issues, but we kind of represent different constituents, if that makes sense.
Yeah, perfect. And then another question from John Foster, do you use iNaturalist at all?
So iNaturalist, Missin, EdMaps, NAS, all of these are really great data sharing platforms. The main problem with all of them is really just frankly that so many of them exist and there's not great information sharing between them. Our goal is to upload or make our data available that we're collecting with the delimitation app to other sources like, Missin, like iNaturalist, what be it, and make sure that that information is as widely accessible as possible. But we also want to make sure that people are aware of what we have to offer so that if they can, and if they have Esri accounts, that they're able to utilize that and have access to our more comprehensive data set that provides that absence data as well, because that's another thing that's missing from a lot of the invasive species reporting platforms is that you're only seeing where the plant is. You're not seeing where was monitored and where it's not. And that's one of the benefits that we are able to provide with the Esri products.
Great. Perfect. So I don't see any other questions in our Q&A. But if anyone has any additional questions for Sam, please post them in the chat. And Sam, if you don't mind answering those. And
Yeah,
we're going to move
absolutely.
ahead. Thank you so much for that presentation.
Yes.